Welcome back to Down the Road. We've been hearing so much, well, terrible news out of Ukraine that leaves you shaking your head and just waiting for some good news. The tragedy that you're seeing playing out over your TV and through social media and the stories that you're hearing on the radio, just, it ends up being that's the first thing you check in the morning is how much more bad did you hear, or are you going to see? And so it leaves you shaking your head. Well, there's a 20-year-old named Tyler. He was released by Russian troops after being detained in Crimea for days. Now, Tyler was teaching English in Kherson, Ukraine, when the war began, and Tyler Jacob's mom joins us right now, and that's Tina Hauser. Tina, good to have you coming down the road with us. Thanks for coming on. I know you're getting pulled at by a lot of different directions right now.
Yes, it's been a whirlwind of interviews and things like that. It's just great to know that my son is safe again.
Yeah. So first off, what did they use for a reason to detain him, to have him in Crimea under custody?
They said it was because he was a U.S. citizen, so he was pulled off the bus after he went through that point.
Okay. What made him decide that he was going to answer his calling to teach in Ukraine? What made him go there to teach?
He's always had a passion for travel, and Ukraine was just calling out to him after he got out of high school. And he's like, Mom, I'm going to go pursue this. And during the summer last year is when he met his now wife, and she's also a teacher over there. And they decided that why not pursue his passion even further with teaching. So when he went over there in November, he started teaching, and then they got married in January of this year.
Were you there for the wedding?
No, unfortunately, they only wanted just the two of them and the person doing the ceremony for them. So neither of our families were there.
Okay. Is she Ukrainian?
Yeah, she's a born native Ukrainian with her daughter.
Well, that had to be really nervous there as well, in terms of, did she attempt to leave the country, or what's the status there?
Well, she did get out of the country. Her and her daughter were able to leave about almost 2 weeks ago, and they met up with Tyler on Saturday morning after he was in a NATO country where he's free.
Okay. I keep thinking during this time when people get separated and, they have to go different directions for whatever period of time. I just think it's such a blessing we have cell phones.
Yep.
They have a way to get in touch with each other and be able to reconnect. When all of this went down, when all of this happened, how long did it take for word to get back to you? When did you find out that your son was in harm's way?
So he called me on that Saturday morning, March 12th, and said, Mom, there's a bus leaving with just foreigners on the bus. I have to leave my wife and daughter behind. I'm like, all right. So that's the last time at 4:30 in the morning that I heard from him. We texted until about 8 o'clock that morning and then lost connection together. And then that following Monday, I got a text message from his wife, and she's like, Tina, he's been detained. We don't know where he's at. We don't know what's going on. So I reached out immediately to Amy Klobuchar's office, and we got the ball rolling to find and locate him.
Well, and I was going to bring Amy into this conversation. Senator Klobuchar is someone I've had the privilege of getting to know. And, tenacious would be a word I'd use to describe her. How did that ball start getting rolling downhill to the point where something like this could happen? I mean, what did Amy tell you? What did she do? What did her staff do?
Well, I talked to her staff member, that's the deputy there in her office, and I told her what was going on. And then they took all the basic information of what I knew, when I got the information, who sent it to me, all that kind of stuff. And then an hour later, I got another phone call back saying that they're already in reach with Amy Klobuchar herself. Then they reached out to the embassy in Moscow to figure out what's going on, that get them guys on board. And then they were also in reach out with the Department of State. So everything went quickly, and they've been by our side ever since.
Yeah, for me, this wasn't a story that a person could track. It's like a story that came to you after the fact. And of course, Amy has been such a strong critic of what the Russians are doing in Ukraine. And so, that threw up some red flags. She hasn't been afraid to go out there and say exactly what's going on, which is one of the reasons I'm a big Amy fan. But I didn't, I'm glad to hear that didn't stop things from happening when she needed to be able to do this, for your son, Tyler.
Yeah, I cannot thank their team enough for all the help that she has given and the support that she has given. It's been wonderful, because I couldn't have done this without them helping us locate where he was. It's just been a blessing.
Where is Tyler and his family now?
They're in a NATO country where they're all safe.
Okay. No, I get it. I would never. I thoroughly understand. Let me ask you this: the conversations that you had with him since then, how was he treated?
We talked about how he was treated. He was in a jail. They moved him from the checkpoint into a jail, and he had spent his 10 days there because they could only detain him for that 10 days, and then they had to release him. So he was treated very well. The person that was doing the interviewing and questioning and the court stuff that was assisting him was taking extra care of him, which was a very heartfelt blessing right there, because it could have been horrible for him.
So does he speak Russian?
He is learning to speak it. He speaks a little bit more with each day, but yes, he's getting there.
Okay, that had to be a real challenge as well. The ability to know what's being said next to you versus what's being said to you. Sometimes I would guess could be really hard there. In terms of where he's at with the Ukrainian wife, with this new family that he has, and with the passion he has for travel and being, starting a life there, teaching, what does he think of what's happening when he sees what's happening on the news? What's Tyler's take on all that?
He's devastated by it. I mean, he loved being there. He loved the country, thought it was beautiful, and he just wanted to keep exploring. And now he's devastated and scared because they may not ever be able to go back if they ever choose to go back. Because who knows what it's going to be like. I mean, it was very hard to see the stuff that he was sending me and telling me. I could not imagine living like that every day.
Yeah, I couldn't either. And to see places, just physical structures that define communities and define a nation, and to see the type of war that Russia is waging on the people of Ukraine, once it's all over, assuming that it gets over, assuming that we get to the place where we're all taking that deep sigh that Ukrainians have held on to the country they have so fiercely fought of. I just keep looking at it and saying, what's left? How are you going to rebuild? How much money goes into something like this? And so I'm always left shaking my head, Tina, going, that was a beautiful building and it's not going to be there again.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, you see the pictures that the media has posted. You don't see everything that, like, my son was seeing. And he says, Mom, I don't know how this country is going to rebuild or how they're going to do things. Because it's devastating. It's worse than what we actually get to really see it to be. Yeah,
I have no doubt about that. That the other part is there's people that your son met that through teaching and neighbors and family, he's never going to get to see again. I mean, that whole base. I mean, did he speak to that with you?
Not a whole lot, but they do have some of the teaching was done through Zoom classes. So we're hoping that they can maybe still teach via Zoom once they get back here. But right now, they're not able to do any of it because of what's all going on.
Okay. Did Tyler say that many of the students spoke English, that hurdle was was easy to pass?
Um, with them learning the way they were learning, because most of them are adults that they were teaching.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a hurdle, just like it is for him to learn Russian. But they were doing really well teaching and doing what they needed to do to get the citizens to speak it better. So it's a awesome thing that they were doing, but it will be hard for them to rebuild.
Well, they were showing pictures of Tyler, while you and I have been talking, that are going to play out, as people watch this. And big, strong redhead, we don't get afraid of anything, but I have to ask you this. There had to be a lot of fear that came along with being detained and separated from your new wife and family. I mean, there just had to be that, am I ever going to see them again?
Yeah, and that's what he was really worried about. He was worried when and if he would ever get to see his family again. And what pulled him through it was thinking of both of them every day that he was there. I mean, he's told me, Mom, 20 hours out of the day, I sat there and thought about them the whole time and was just hoping and praying that I'd get out sooner than later.
Yeah. And it sounds like Tyler's the type of individual that was worried a lot about what you thought and worried about what Mom was going through back home. That's got to be part of all this as well, Tina. It has to be part of the overall, sitting there with all this anxiety.
Oh yeah, he hit one of the messages that we got that we knew that he was getting released on. We got a message saying, and he sent and he goes, "Tell my mom I'm okay."
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Well, you're wise. You don't tell us what NATO country he's in, but I hope that he and that beautiful new family find that to be a home. I don't know where. I know this, that we'd like to see him in Winona. We'd like to see him in the great state of Minnesota. So I'll be talking with Amy Klobuchar very soon.
Okay.
So I will tell her the story of how we're all quite happy with the work she did here as well. I know you've had that opportunity.
Yep. We're hoping that they're going to come back to the U.S. and build a life here the way it sounds. It's just going to be a little while so we can get their visas set up and they can come back here when they're ready.
It's time to be grandma and not worry, right? Be grandma.
Yep.
Tina, way to go. I'd high five you, but, there you go. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.